One bright Saturday morning, Mrs. Everwood decided to visit the bustling local market, a vibrant place filled with fresh produce, handmade crafts, and lively chatter. It was her favorite weekly outing, and this time, she decided to take Oliver with her. She had a special harness and leash for him, ensuring he could explore safely by her side. As they walked through the market entrance, Oliver's eyes widened in wonder. He had never seen so many people, colors, and smells in one place. Mrs. Everwood smiled, gently guiding him along. "Stay close, Oliver," she said softly, and he obediently hopped beside her, his nose twitching with curiosity. Their first stop was the vegetable stand. Mrs. Everwood selected crisp lettuce, vibrant carrots, and fresh parsley, Oliver's favorites. The vendor, a friendly elderly man named Mr. Thompson, noticed Oliver and chuckled. "Well, isn't this a surprise? Bringing your clever rabbit to the market today, Mrs. Everwood?" She laughed and nodded. Yes, Oliver wanted to see what all the fuss was about. Oliver stood on his hind legs, peering over the edge of the stand, and Mr. Thompson handed him a small carrot. "Here you go, little fellow," he said. Oliver took it gratefully, munching away happily. As they moved through the market, Oliver's honest and curious nature continued to shine. At the fruit stand, he nudged Mrs. Everwood's hand when she almost left her wallet behind. "Oh, thank you, Oliver," she said, realizing her mistake. "I don't know what I'd do without you." The duo then visited a stall selling freshly baked goods. The aroma of bread and pastries filled the air, making Oliver's nose twitch excitedly. The baker, a jovial woman named Mrs. Green, noticed Oliver's interest and offered him a tiny piece of whole grain bread. "Just a little treat for your clever companion," she said with a wink. As they made their way through the crowded aisles, Oliver's presence drew smiles and laughter from other shoppers. Children were particularly fascinated by the well-behaved rabbit on a leash. Mrs. Everwood allowed them to pet him gently, and Oliver enjoyed the attention, his eyes bright with happiness. While browsing a stall with handmade soaps and candles, Mrs. Everwood was deeply engrossed in conversation with the artisan. Oliver, always observant, noticed a young boy nearby looking distressed. The boy was clutching a small toy rabbit, searching the crowd anxiously. Oliver tugged gently on his leash, pulling Mrs. Everwood's attention. Following Oliver's lead, she approached the boy. "Hello there, are you lost?" she asked kindly. The boy nodded, tears in his eyes. Oliver nuzzled the boy's leg, offering comfort. With Oliver's help, Mrs. Everwood was able to find the market manager, who made an announcement. Soon, the boy's relieved mother arrived, thanking Mrs. Everwood and Oliver profusely. As the morning turned to afternoon, Mrs. Everwood and Oliver decided it was time to head home. Their market bag was filled with fresh produce and a few special treats, and their hearts were filled with the joy of new experiences and helping others. Back at Everwood Manor, Mrs. Everwood prepared a delicious salad for Oliver with the fresh vegetables they had bought. "You were wonderful today, Oliver," she said, placing the bowl in front of him. "I'm so proud of you." Oliver nibbled on his salad, content and happy. The market adventure had been exciting, and he had enjoyed every moment of it. He knew that no matter where he went with Mrs. Everwood, he was always loved and appreciated. And so, in the comfort of his home, Oliver the smart and honest rabbit settled down for a peaceful nap, dreaming of more adventures with his beloved owner. One sunny morning, as Oliver and Mrs. Everwood strolled through the vibrant Everwood Manor gardens, a familiar scent caught Oliver's attention. His nose twitched and his ears perked up as he recognized the scent of an old friend, Elfian, a small, whimsical elf who lived in the enchanted part of the forest just beyond the manor grounds. Oliver had met Elfian years ago, when he was just a young rabbit exploring the woods. Elfian had a knack for magic and a heart full of kindness, and the two had become fast friends, often sharing stories and adventures. However, Elfian had been traveling for some time, and Oliver hadn't seen him in months. Excited, Oliver tugged gently on his leash, guiding Mrs. Everwood towards the edge of the garden. Curious but trusting her intelligent rabbit, Mrs. Everwood followed. As they approached the old oak tree near the forest, Oliver's eyes sparkled with anticipation. From behind the tree emerged a small, sprightly figure with a twinkling smile and bright, green eyes. It was Elfian, carrying a tiny satchel filled with herbs and flowers. "Oliver, my old friend!" Elfian exclaimed, rushing forward to embrace the rabbit. Mrs. Everwood watched in astonishment and delight as the tiny elf greeted Oliver warmly. "Hello, Elfian," she said, smiling. "It's wonderful to finally meet you. Oliver has told me so much about you." Elfian bowed courteously. "The pleasure is mine, Mrs. Everwood. I've heard many wonderful things about you as well." He then turned to Oliver. "I've just returned from a journey to the fairy glades. I brought back some special gifts for you." From his satchel, Elfian pulled out a delicate flower with shimmering petals and a small vial of glowing liquid. "This is a moon blossom," he explained, handing the flower to Mrs. Everwood. "It blooms under the moonlight and has a calming fragrance." Then, turning to Oliver, he offered the vial. "And this is elven dew. Just a drop can rejuvenate and energize." Oliver nuzzled Elfian gratefully, his eyes shining with appreciation. Mrs. Everwood was equally enchanted by the magical gifts. "Thank you, Elfian. These are truly special." The trio spent the rest of the morning together, sharing stories of their adventures. Elfian recounted tales of the mystical creatures he had encountered on his travels, while Oliver and Mrs. Everwood spoke of the many happy moments they had shared at Everwood Manor. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Elfian prepared to leave, promising to visit more often. "I'll always be nearby, my friends," he said, giving Oliver one last hug. "Just follow the scent of wildflowers, and you'll find me." Mrs. Everwood and Oliver waved goodbye as Elfian disappeared into the forest, leaving behind a trail of sparkling dust. Oliver felt a deep sense of joy and contentment. Reconnecting with his old friend had made the day truly magical. Back at the manor, Mrs. Everwood placed the moon blossom in a special spot in the garden, where it would catch the moonlight. She carefully stored the elven dew, knowing it would be a cherished remedy for Oliver in times of need. As evening fell, Oliver sat by the garden, looking at the horizon where the forest lay. He knew that with friends like Elfian and the Everwood family, his life was filled with love, magic, and endless adventures. And so, under the soft glow of the setting sun, Oliver the smart, honest, and now even happier rabbit, settled down for a peaceful rest, dreaming of the wonderful times to come. Oliver and Elfian sat under the old oak tree, basking in the warm sunlight. They were delighted to have this time together after so long. Mrs. Everwood, understanding the depth of their friendship, gave them some space while she tended to the garden nearby. Elfian began, his eyes twinkling with excitement. "Oliver, you won't believe the adventures I've had. Let me tell you about the time I met the cloud dancers in the fairy glades." Oliver's ears perked up, and he nodded eagerly, ready to listen. "Well," Elfian started, "I was traveling through the glades when I stumbled upon a hidden path. Following it, I reached a clearing where the air was filled with soft music. There, I saw the cloud dancers, tiny fairies with wings as delicate as morning mist, dancing on fluffy clouds." Oliver's eyes widened in wonder. "What did you do?" "I joined them," Elfian said with a grin. "They taught me their dance, and we floated on clouds, twirling and laughing. It felt like a dream. And look, they gave me this." He pulled out a small, shimmering feather from his satchel, as a token of friendship.